Picture the most devastating weapon imaginable, a machine built purely to tear flesh and steel. In the 9th century, high in the remote mountains of the Sichuan province, men sat in dark, stone-walled rooms, mixing sulfur, charcoal, and potassium nitrate. They worked tirelessly, grinding these precise minerals together under the flickering light of candles. They were not trying to conquer a nation, not because they lacked ambition, not because they were pacifists, because they were terrified of something else entirely. You are a Taoist alchemist. You are obsessed with death. You are convinced you can cure it. You mix the powder. You apply the heat. And instead of granting eternal life, the mixture does something that will eventually slaughter millions. But the men in that room did not build a weapon. They built a mistake. The explosive reaction those monks stumbled onto was called huoyao, which literally translates to fire medicine. It was an embarrassing failed pharmaceutical. How we went from a botched immortality potion to the modern firearm is not a simple straight line of invention. It is a story of terrifying accidents, stolen secrets, and relentless human adaptation. Historian Antonio Andrade documented how this volatile mixture sat harmlessly in festivals for generations, before anyone realized its true potential. The answer to how guns took over the planet is not just one thing. It is a puzzle involving exploding bamboo, desperate sieges, and an accidental delivery system nobody saw coming. But to understand how this chemical mistake reshaped the balance of power on every continent, you have to look at the first people who weaponized it, and the terrifying realization they had when they strapped it to a simple wooden stick. Let us look at the basic chemistry. When heated, saltpeter releases oxygen incredibly fast. This feeds a fast combustion reaction, producing a sudden expansion of invisible gas. That expanding gas is the secret behind everything. For centuries, people in China used this gas just to launch fireworks and send smoke signals. It was entirely decorative. During the 12th century, the Song dynasty fought for survival. Military commanders looked at this celebratory fire medicine and decided to weaponize the blast. They packed a hollow bamboo tube with gunpowder, strapped it to a spear, and lit it. They called it the fire lance. Imagine standing on a medieval battlefield. You have trained to block swords and dodge arrows. Suddenly, the enemy points a bamboo pole at you. It spews raw flame and burning debris directly into your face. The psychological shock alone broke armies. But the fire lance had a fatal limit. Bamboo splits. If you packed too much powder into the chamber, the weapon exploded, sending jagged bamboo shrapnel directly into your eyes. They needed something stronger. Once Chinese craftsmen figured out how to cast bronze tubes that could handle the massive pressure of the expanding gas, the hand cannon was born. Now, they used the invisible expanding gas to push a solid projectile through the air at speeds that could instantly shatter human bones. But how did this Chinese secret reach the rest of the world? It was through pure violence. When the Mongols invaded China in the 13th century, they experienced these terrifying explosions firsthand during massive city sieges. Instead of retreating, the Mongols absorbed the technology. As they violently conquered across Eurasia, they acted as an accidental delivery system, spreading gunpowder faster than any merchant caravan ever could. By the late 13th century, this nightmare reached Europe. It landed in a society dominated by towering stone castles and heavily armored knights. For hundreds of years, if you wore steel armor on a war horse, you were practically a god. Gunpowder did not care about your steel. Early European cannons were clumsy and slow. You strapped a thick metal tube to a pole, shoved powder inside, touched a burning rope to a tiny hole, and prayed it did not blow your hands off. But when it worked, the results were devastating. Castle walls crumbled into useless dust almost overnight. The entire military order of Europe violently collapsed. A peasant with a cheap metal tube could instantly kill a wealthy knight who trained from birth. But there was a massive problem. To fire an early hand cannon, you needed both hands and a constantly burning ember. Holding a heavy metal tube steady, aiming at a moving target, and touching a burning rope to a tiny hole during a chaotic battle was almost impossible. This brings us to the late 15th century and the invention of the matchlock mechanism. It was a simple mechanical clamp called a serpentine that held the burning rope for you. When you pulled a primitive trigger, the clamp slowly lowered the burning rope directly into the priming powder. You could finally use both hands to hold and aim. This single mechanical tweak transformed the crude gun into the absolute deadliest tool on Earth. The Ottoman Empire immediately adopted it. Portuguese traders carried the matchlock across the ocean and introduced it to Japan. Local Japanese gunsmiths refined the design so perfectly that their weapons became legendary. Even China, where this explosive innovation first started, ended up buying advanced matchlock weapons back from foreigners to defend their borders. But there is an exception to the dominance of the matchlock rifle. It required an open, slow-burning flame at all times. If a sudden storm rolled in, your expensive weapon was dead wood. If you tried to hide in the dark, your glowing burning rope gave away your exact position instantly. The solution was the flintlock mechanism, perfected in the 17th century. It used a hard piece of flint striking a steel plate to create sparks, eliminating the open flame entirely. It was faster to operate, endlessly more reliable in terrible weather, and completely revolutionized on infantry combat across the globe. The flintlock reigned supreme for 2 centuries, driving the brutal expansion of empires, the Napoleonic Wars, and the American Revolution. Every colonial conquest relied directly on the sparks generated by this specific piece of flint and steel. When militaries paired the fast-firing flintlock with a socket bayonet, the gun became both a ranged firearm and a deadly close combat spear at the exact same time. Dedicated pikemen became obsolete. Entire armies reorganized their tactical formations. The modern military machine permanently took its final shape. It did not stop there. Mechanical change accelerated wildly, leading straight toward repeating rifles, sophisticated metallurgy, and fully automatic weapons. They had finally, and very violently, cured death forever.